Boom. You're watching the point of Patreon, rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. And then check out the Progressive Comedy Tour. Ron Placone and I are coming to the East Coast. Tickets are going fast, everybody. June 12th, DC, 13th, Baltimore, 14, 15, Philly, 16, New Haven, Connecticut, 17, New York City, 19, Boston. Get your tickets at grahamelwood.com. So we just had Memorial Day, and I posted some videos. One was from Tulsi Gabbard, which was a pretty powerful one, but I want to show what happened. So a soldier, fairly new soldier in the United States Army, pulled out a phone and just recorded a thing saying, the serving, in the Army has impacted me. It's made me a better person, a better man, and all this stuff. And so they were like, well, let's use this as a recruiting tool, and they did it right around Memorial Day. So some of you have asked who watch this show that don't live in America. So Memorial Day is the last Monday of May, and it is a day to honor any service members that died in the line of duty serving this country. So it's a pretty somber thing. It's a 3-day weekend. A lot of people, it's extra days. It shouldn't just be about going out and going to barbecues and the beach and stuff like that. So the Army put out a tweet. How has serving impacted you? And it got 70,000 likes and 9,300 retweets as of May 23rd. This is the week going in, but it has gotten tens of thousands of responses. Caitlin Johnstone talked about it on medium.com. But I want to show you what their response. I don't think the Army anticipated. I'm going to just read some of the tweets. If you go to this tweet and just scroll that, you'll just see a lot of very, very honest and painful tweets. Extreme mood swings due to PTSD, constant pain in my knees and back, inability to tell the love of my life how I feel, and the nagging want of blowing my head off daily. My grandfather gained PTSD and was forced to kill children he didn't want to in the Korean War. Each time he was around children, he constantly cried until the day he died. I've only seen my father smile in pictures. I was a baby when he went to Vietnam. The things he saw and did broke him inside. There was no joy in life for him anymore. He finally shot himself in his study one afternoon. I found him when I came home. I was 8. I was sexually assaulted and discharged at Madigan Army Hospital when I reported what happened. My DD-214 was impacted. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it's like your permanent file in the Army. I was not awarded full benefits. I lived in my car, struggled with suicide attempts, and no self-worth. Now I'm fighting a PTSD calm. Army of One, #MeToo, #MST. Uncle was drafted in the Vietnam War, served for 2 months and began using heroin to deal with killing people. He was exposed to Agent Orange. I've heard the Agent Orange thing. The Agent Orange thing is all over this. And the sexual assault from women. I mean, all of it. PTSD, all of it. Suicide is just all over this. He was exposed to Agent Orange and dishonorably discharged and died of an overdose in January of '81. He was 28. My father served in World War II overseas, an African-American soldier sent to the colored bases. All I know my mother said is he was never the same when he came home, and when I was 5, he was committed to an institution. I remember us taking that long ride to see him on Sundays. I was sexually assaulted, fought it in court-martial and lost. He knows what he did and got away free. The system failed me. Now I suffer from severe anxiety, depression, and PTSD symptoms. I mean, there's thousands of these. It wasn't like there's all a bunch of positives and I had to dig through to find the negative ones. No. It's endless. The World Socialist website covered it. U.S. Army tweet provokes outpouring of anti-war sentiment. It's been hell for the world. It's Listen to this one. I met this guy named Christian who served in Iraq. He was cool, had his own place with a pole in the living room, always had lit parties. My best friend at the time started dating him, so we spent a weekend at his crib. After a party, 6 a.m., he took out his laptop. He started showing us some part of his time in the army, pics with a bunch of dudes, smiling, laughing. It was cool. I was drunk and didn't care. He started showing us pics of some little kids. After a while, his eyes went completely fucking dark. I was like, man, dude's high as fuck. He very calmly explained to us what all those kids were dead, but that's what war was. Dead kids and nothing to show for it but a military discount. Christian killed himself 2 months later. My uncle, Lyle Elwood, was a Marine. He served at the very end of World War II. Was in Guam, I believe. He shipped out. I went to did some research. I saw his muster list. He shipped out of Pearl Harbor in like 45, right before, maybe 6 months before the war ended. And he went to Guam, and then he fought in Korea. And my understanding is he fought in the Chosin Valley, which is this very brutal battle where the Chinese crossed the 49th parallel, and he had to do whatever he had to do to survive. You ask any Marine, like I saw this woman on Memorial Day working at my yoga studio, and she had a USMC, and I go, are you a Marine? She goes, yeah. And I said, oh, Semper Fi. My uncle was a Marine. He fought in the Chosin Valley. And she went, ooh, he's a hero. Because they were like outnumbered 10-1 or something. He got detached from his unit, and he came back, and everyone said he was never the same guy. I never met the man because he hung himself in Redondo Beach in the late 60s. And was always used by my mom mainly to like tell my brother and I, don't join the military, don't go to war. I was a kid in the 70s when there was a very strong anti-war, anti-Vietnam sentiment. That's the last I remember ever seeing like a serious anti-war sentiment in this country. Been dwindled since then. I personally, in the 7 comedy tours I've done overseas, have seen, I don't know what it's like to be in combat, and I'll never know. But I was on a helicopter that came under fire. I had some rocket attacks. If you watch my movie Afghanistan, there's footage in there of me that I took. I'm standing there holding the camcorder in an operating theater where they're working on a 13-year-old Afghani boy who got hit with an IED. And then another 9-year-old they were prepping for brain surgery because he had shrapnel fragments in his head because he was playing in a minefield. I've met wounded soldiers. I've met family members that had people die overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've met more wounded vets than I knew existed. 22 vets a day commit suicide. How many of those tweets are about I suffer with PTSD? If they're struggling with PTSD, that means they've had suicidal thoughts. Trust me on that. A 2018 study by the Council on Foreign Relations found that recruits from families with annual incomes less than $38,000 a year made up 19% of the soldiers. Over 60% of recruits come from families with annual incomes of less than $61,000. And over 80% come from families who make less than $80,000. That's a family income. That's not one, that's the whole family. That's the mom and the dad or the 2 parents or the whoever is supporting everybody. The total income. 80 grand to raise kids. The study did not show the levels at which the top 5% or the top 1% participated in the wars, but they no doubt constitute a tiny minority. That's the point of the article, of Caitlin Johnstone's article in Medium and the World Socialist website, the working class. The poor and the working class fight the wars for the rich. That's what this is about. I don't think the CEOs of Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing, and I don't think their kids are going over there. NAFTA, we ship jobs overseas, we deregulate the banks. There's a classic quote from General MacArthur. The soldier above all others prays for peace, for it is the soldier who must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. There's another vet that gave a really amazing speech about maybe 9-10 years ago. I've met the man. I've done the Jimmy Dore show with him, and he's one of the producers of the Empire Files. This is Mike Prysner.
And I tried hard to be proud of my service, but all I could feel was shame. And racism could no longer mask the reality of the occupation. These were people. These were human beings. I've since been plagued by guilt anytime I see an elderly man, like the one who couldn't walk, who we rolled onto a stretcher and told the Iraqi police to take him away. I feel guilt anytime I see a mother with her children, like the one who cried hysterically and screamed that we are worse than Saddam as we forced her from her home. I feel guilt anytime I see a young girl, like the one I grabbed by the arm and dragged into the street. We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. Racism within the military has long been an important tool to justify the destruction and occupation of another country. It has long been used to justify the killing, subjugation, and torture of another people. Racism is a vital weapon employed by this government. It is a more important weapon than a rifle, a tank, a bomber, or a battleship. It is more destructive than an artillery shell, or a bunker buster, or a Tomahawk missile. While all those weapons are created and owned by this government, they are harmless without people willing to use them. Those who send us to war do not have to pull a trigger or lob a mortar round. They do not have to fight the war, they merely have to sell the war. They need a public who is willing to send their soldiers into harm's way. They need soldiers who are willing to kill and be killed without question. They can spend millions on a single bomb, but that bomb only becomes a weapon when the ranks in the military are willing to follow orders to use it. They can send every last soldier anywhere on earth, but there will only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight. And the ruling class, the billionaires who profit from human suffering, care only about expanding their wealth, controlling the world economy. Understand that their power lies only in their ability to convince us that war, oppression, and exploitation is in our interest. They understand that their wealth is dependent on their ability to convince the working class to die to control the market of another country. And convincing us to kill and die is based on their ability to make us think that we are somehow superior. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen have nothing to gain from this occupation. The vast majority of people living in the U.S. have nothing to gain from this occupation. In fact, not only do we have nothing to gain, but we suffer more because of it. We lose limbs, endure trauma, and give our lives. Our families have to watch flag-draped coffins lowered into the earth. Millions in this country without health care, jobs, or access to education must watch this government squander over $450 million a day on this occupation. Poor and working people in this country are sent to kill poor and working people in another country to make the rich richer. And without racism, soldiers would realize that they have more in common with the Iraqi people than they do with the billionaires who send us to war. I threw families onto the street in Iraq, only to come home and find families thrown onto the street in this country, in this tragic and unnecessary foreclosure crisis. We need to wake up and realize that our real enemies are not in some distant land. They're not people whose names we don't know and cultures we don't understand. The enemy is people we know very well and people we can identify. The enemy is a system that wages war when it's profitable. The enemy is the CEOs who lay us off from our jobs when it's profitable. It's the insurance companies who deny us health care when it's profitable. It's the banks who take away our homes when it's profitable. Our enemy is not 5,000 miles away. They are right here at home. If we organize and fight with our sisters and brothers, we can stop this war, we can stop this government, and we can create a better world.
That's Mike Prysner giving an amazing speech, and my sentiments exactly. Thanks for watching the show. As Jimmy says at the end of his show that we just did in Austin, Texas and Tempe, Arizona, all wars are bullshit. Smedley Butler said it, war is a racket. said he was muscle for the American, for his oil companies and American corporate interests. That's what Smedley Butler said. War is a racket. Thanks for watching the show. Like, subscribe, share the videos, get the word out, because the corporate media is owned by the war machine and they don't want these messages out there. Mike Prysner is never going to get interviewed on these channels, on the big network channels. So support their Empire Files and support this show. Support independent media any way you can. Thanks for watching.